him interacting with the touchscreen monitors that are in front of them. Those will provide the crew with telemetry data, engine data, really anything they need for the mission. And now that the seats have been refined upwards, they have access to those screens now.
It's pretty jumpy.
As John mentioned before, we have a 5-hour launch window tonight with 4 opportunities in that 5-hour window. Like Jesse said earlier, we're not going to the space station. So with space stations, it's an instantaneous launch window, really a moment, a fraction of a second, because of the final destination being the space station and having to chase it, catch up to it. Since we're not doing that today, the crew is actually going to an altitude above the space station. They'll be cruising around 575 kilometers.
Preparing for T0 shortly here. We're just at T minus 1 hour and 27 minutes. And they're completing some final procedures here. They've already done comms checks, suit leak checks, closed the hatch and done the hatch leak check. So the closeout team has exited the, or will be, they're preparing to finish their procedures there. We'll be exiting the crew arm roughly 26 minutes or so.
Yes, full milestones of this mission. So Haley Arsenault will be the youngest American to go into space. She will be also the first with a prosthetic. Dr. Cyan Proctor will be the first Black female pilot of the spacecraft. This is the furthest that we're going to be sending humans since the Apollo missions. And I'm trying to recall them all in my mind. This is the first time that we're going to be having 3 Dragons in orbit. So we currently have 1 cargo Dragon and 1 crew Dragon at the International Space Station. This will be the 3rd. So a lot of exciting things to happen as part of today's Inspiration4 mission.
Exactly. It's been an exciting day so far. And if you're just now joining us, you are watching the very first all-civilian mission to orbit, known as Inspiration4. At T-minus 7 hours, the crew woke up. Shortly after that, they performed some medical checks prior to their first meal of the day, which they had at Hangar X with some friends and family, and then followed by a crew walkout of Hangar X as they made their way to their Teslas.
Yep, and they hopped into the Teslas and made their way towards the suit-up room, SpaceX's debut of the suit-up room in the Falcon Support Building. They attended the pre-launch briefing there, and then also began donning their spacesuits.
You guys mind just watch them?
And then, of course, at around T-minus 3 hours, we had the crew walkout. That was followed by the transportation to the pad and hopping in the elevators, ascending the tower that you see there in the right-hand side of your screen. Made one last phone call to their friends and family before heading down to the White Room, which is the area that they get to sign their names prior to hopping in.
Yep, and then the crew got inside the Dragon capsule process, also known as egress. They performed some communication checks, rotated the seats upwards,
I had no idea.
and then before hatch comes out, we perform suit leak checkouts, as well as final interior inspections of any type of debris inside of the Dragon capsule.
And then we're gonna, we saw the closure of the side hatch. They performed the leach on that side hatch. We got good news there. Everything was good. we are awaiting the LES checks, which will, once those are complete, we'll get the okay for the closeout crew to leave the white room.
When we get inside, T-minus 1 hour, things get, that's where it finally starts to pick up. We'll be having the various teams poll themselves, the Dragon team's mission director checking out, chief engineer is going to be doing polls, launch director does poll, closeout team gets clear of the blast danger area, T-minus 50 minutes, and then the biggies, the dynamic event, so to speak, 45 minutes, we do the prop load go for prop and for launch. We'll then retract the crew access on. Our thing on the right-hand side that's up against Dragon right now, even with the hatch closed, that'll retract away. It takes a couple of minutes. Once that's out of the way, the crew's going to arm the launch escape system. Getting exciting already. Propellant load will begin at T-minus 35 minutes, as is traditional for Falcon 9, and then we will count down for an on-time launch at 8:02:56 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Now, one thing, we're going to a 575-kilometer altitude orbit today. Dragon will take itself up there after the Falcon 9 drops it off. And I was looking on my maps, and from here to the Golden Gate Bridge, Hawthorne, California, where we're seeing the Golden Gate Bridge, is 573 kilometers. So if you drove from here to the Golden Gate Bridge, take us about the same amount of time as when the crew woke up at T-minus 8 hours or so. You can get there and do the same distance. The only difference is, while I may be doing the speed limit all the way to the Golden Gate Bridge, you'll never get to space trying to drive your car vertically upwards. It takes a lot more energy over a short period of time. And that's one thing that makes, as we like to say, launch is hard or space is hard. You've got to essentially take, as Kate mentioned earlier, that 1 million pounds of propellant and find a way to burn it in 10 minutes so you can get your velocity up to 17,500 miles an hour, about 7.5 kilometers per second. 9-second stage of the Dragon into orbit. There is one thing I do want to mention. Dragon goes into orbit, but the second stage is going just as fast. It's just Dragon will pop off. So both will be in orbit, and then later on, the second stage comes back down to Earth, burns up. We don't try to land it. That'll be on the second burn.
Yeah, we are about an hour and 20 minutes away from liftoff and eventual stage separation of the Dragon. But in addition to the science and supplies going up onto the onto the Inspiration4 mission, the crew's also taken along some personal items to a trip around the planet. We caught up with the crew during training to get a little more insight on what each of them are planning to take into space.
Most special item I'm bringing up to space is this custom jewelry I had made for my wife and 2 daughters. It's a dragon pendant, and so it'll be going in my satchel on suit-up day, and I'm gonna fly it in space with them. I think we all now have like a really close connection with dragons, and this seemed really appropriate, something hopefully my family will want to pass along for generations to come.
And I think we are back there. Thanks for bearing with us, everyone. As we said, we are here live at Kennedy Space Center Saturn V facility, and the Banana Creek bleachers, bringing you our own live views of Pad 39A there off in the distance, and the Megatron screen showing us the SpaceX live feed. We're currently sitting at T-minus 1 hour and 20 minutes until launch. The crew has boarded. They have had all their suit checks and comm checks, as well as the hatch has been closed. So things are progressing incredibly well here today. The weather over the last 48 hours has improved, going from 70% go to 80% go to 90% now go for launch. Because they're not going to the ISS for a long-term stay, a little bit different with this launch is that they actually have to be able to look at not only their launch weather, but their splashdown weather. So things are looking good. The sun is starting to set. Liftoff is scheduled for about 30 minutes after sunset, so we're hoping to see that beautiful twilight view here as well. But thanks for bearing with us. Take a moment, share out the broadcast. That's a huge help for us. We can continue to improve and bring more of this type of coverage for you guys. We've got a lot of other stuff from here on the ground that'll be coming out over the coming days and weeks as well, and excited to share that all with you this morning. Tyler and Marcus and I and a number of the Prosperity Seat contestants jumped on a boat that we chartered and went up to Pad 39A out on the ocean side, and we're probably the last boat of the public that was able to get that close to the booster, and we've got some photos that we can't wait to share with you as well. So make sure you follow us over on Instagram for that, and we will share those out here in the next couple of days. But as always, let us know where you're watching from. Love to welcome you here. I know we got Ryan in the chat. We got MB's here. Thanks for being here, guys.
All my patients,
if you're just joining us again, welcome. You're watching our live launch coverage of Inspiration4, actually live from Kennedy Space Center. We do have two cameras set up. One is aimed at the pad. The other is bringing you a camera view of the Megatron that's showing the countdown show from SpaceX. Just prior to launch, we will switch that over to the pad to make sure we get just all those views for you guys. And excited to bring that to you. Again, we just want to say thank you to all of our Patreon members, our GoFundMe members, YouTube members. We are here because of you guys. So if you guys would like us to be here more often, there's Falcon Heavies, Artemis 1, SLS, so many things taking place over the next months and years to come. And we now have the setup. We have the gear to be here. So your guys' support makes it a lot easier to be here and bringing you guys the best possible coverage that we can from here at the Saturn V Center, from the press site, from remote cameras, and more. And we're excited to bring that here to you. But if you're just joining us, take a moment, let us know where you're watching from. As always, if you have questions, you can send those in the chat as well, and we will answer them live. But give us a hand, take a moment, share out the broadcast. This is our first time here, so bear with us. Lots of people still getting into place, but we're sitting T-minus 1 hour, 17 minutes.
For a very long time.
Right now, the crew's going through the payload that they are going to be taking with them. We are going to be doing an edit of the full mission coverage where you'll be able to watch our live views as well as the full mission coverage from SpaceX, and that'll be coming up in the next day or two as well. So keep an eye out for that if you want to listen through all kind of the stories and the fun that the crew has had over the last 9 months as they prepared for today's mission. But we're
and so I've had this.
Hey, Preston, good to see you.
And has 19. My ring. Parents, and I'm excited to bring them along for this incredible, amazing journey experience. And thank you for everything that you've done to help me get there.
Love seeing how they've all selected things to take with them. In space, weight is everything. So while they probably want to take as much as they could, there are limitations, but it seemed like the common theme was family. Personally, I think my favorite thing is the photo of Haley that she's taking. Like she said, she underwent treatment for bone cancer when she was 10, and she's taking up a photo, and of course she's going to have a photo of herself floating there with hair, and I just love that she's going to have the opportunity to show the patients that she treats at St. Jude that it gets better, and that they can grow up to be an astronaut one day too.
Yeah, I think Jared's memento of a dragon is par for the course today, as they are all seated in Dragon. So I think that him and his family are going to have tons of memories to come and be able to share that for generations to come too.
Yeah, I love that they get to take a little bit of something with them. As we've been talking throughout this whole mission, it seems so personal. They get personalized suits. And now they get to bring something with them, some memorabilia for themselves, which I think is really important for a mission like this. So in addition to the science supplies and personal items, the Inspiration4 crew is also taking up a number of items that will be auctioned off to help raise money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. This includes an original Kings of Leon NFT that was created using live show visuals and a live recording of the band's new single.
And again,
Time
if
in
you're
Disguise,
just joining
recorded
us,
during their
welcome back
hometown
to the
show
Launchpad.
in
We're here
Nashville
live at Kennedy
just a few
Space
weeks
Center.
ago.
They're talking
The
through a
NFT was
little bit
loaded onto
of
an
some of
iPhone
the
12
St. Jude items that they're being carried on board Inspiration4, so definitely check those out
and there's
on the
going to be a
Inspiration4
bunch of other
website.
cool
But
stuff
if you're
going
just
up that
joining
will
us,
be
welcome
auctioned off as
here.
well.
Golden Gamer, good to see you. Preston,
Yeah,
Ryan.
there's
Let us know in the
quite
chat
a
where you're
list
watching
of
from.
things
Take a moment
that
and share
are
out the
heading
broadcast
up.
as well. Will
Some
help
of
us
you
out.
might recall the Time
We're starting to get
magazine that was
into
recently
kind of that
published with
golden
the
time
Inspiration4
here
crew.
as the sun is setting
Just such-
behind the
I think it
bleachers
was such
as
an
well.
iconic shot. It's very stoic looking. And there's,
We'll
there's
take
going
a
to be a
listen
copy of
back
that
into
flying
the live feed here as
on
they
this
count
mission,
down from
and
T-minus
the
1
crew
hour,
will
13
autograph it
minutes.
after the Dragon capsule splashes down in a animated series, Space Racers. So again, all of these things are available through auction, which is currently live.
Yeah, I love, there's going to be a ukulele in space. Chris is going to be playing a ukulele, and then it's going to come back and be up for auction again, all for a great cause. So I'm so excited to, one, hear him play, and two, see the ukulele in space.
Yeah, and again, this mission is a fundraiser for St. Jude, and I love that they're going to even have some Inspiration4 mission jackets, which are going to feature some artwork from some of the patients at St. Jude, which is going to be pretty incredible. I think that's definitely something I'm going to try and get.
And there's something on board that I know John I love. And it's the right space.
We've got the, for those who remember, we had the Fisher space pens that worked in microgravity. And so Fisher has got a 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 that was a couple of years ago. But they're flying that coin set into space, and they've included material that's actually from Apollo 11. So something else interesting to bid on.
Yeah, super cool. They're also taking up a customized Montblanc Starwalker writing instrument, as well as some stationery that the crew will get to journal about, their experience in space while they're up there. Like I mentioned before, this auction is open. Actually, it opened on Thursday, September 9th, and it will run through November with all of these different items, including the ones we mentioned and more. They'll all be available at various points during the overall mission. And you can bid on these auction items if any of them called to you. Head on over to stjude.org/inspiration4 and check them out.
T-minus 1 hour, 11 minutes, 21 seconds, counting down. Everything to go well. We also did hear during that last segment, the closeout team has left the crew access on. So we're actually still running about 19 minutes ahead of schedule on the closeout activities. Earlier, I got in my pitch for my usual, hey, launch is hard, space is hard. And this is kind of the rockets and spacecraft 101. One of the things I thought about, why is it hard? Why can't you just aim your car and go up, 575 kilometers? And we talked a little bit about, hey, you've got to get 1 million pounds of propellant. You've got to figure out how to burn it in 10 minutes. You've got to steer the rocket, so you've got to be able to have engines that move, can withstand wind gusts, get the rockets on the right trajectory. Then we're talking about like the space pen that works in microgravity. You think about it, when our first stage is getting ready to come back to Earth, there's no gravity. So that means none of the propellant is down at the bottom at the inlets to the engines. So that's one of the things you have to work in space, both here and on Dragon. How do you get propellant into the inlet of the pumps and the valves so that instead you're not pushing gas through there? And that's a bad thing that happens when you want liquid and you only get gas going through your rocket. That's just one of the things that we've got to do. And of course, we've got to fight the force of gravity. 9.8 meters per second squared we've got to overcome. And so I don't know about you, but when I took physics class, it was always, you're sitting on a sled on a frozen pond. It's frictionless. And then how fast you throw the bricks overboard the sled to essentially make the sled move. And how fast can you go depends on how fast you throw the bricks out. And that leads you to the famous rocket equation. Look that one up. You can see that, but essentially it all comes down to how efficient is the engine and how efficient is the structure. And in the case of the Falcon 9, we tried to be as mass efficient as we could so that we carried mostly propellant with just a thin skin of tank around it to hold it. So the more propellant you've got, and the less tank and the less weight of the engines, the more efficient you're going to be, and that way you can carry more into space. And that eventually is where we're going, put humanity out in space.
Yeah, and so we talked a little bit about the time of launch, and today is a little bit different because we have up to 4 opportunities to launch our Inspiration4 crew members. But if we're doing things like trying to rendezvous with the International Space Station, we have to target a very, very specific window. And so depending on the profile of the launch, how high we're sending it, which type of orbit we're sending it, liftoff time does play a factor into that.
Now, one of the important things we talked about earlier is we don't have a 1 second window today. We've got a 5.2 hour window. It's a 1 second window when we're going to the space station because we have to synchronize the launch with when the space station's orbital plane is passing over Florida. It's not exactly overhead. We have to lead it a little bit. But if you think about it, in Florida, we're rotating at about almost 1,500 kilometers an hour going eastward. Doesn't feel like that, but put your seatbelts on. The Earth is rotating. That's 25 kilometers every minute. So if you waited about like a 15-minute launch window, all of a sudden the space station's 375 kilometers east of where you are on the ground, and it takes a tremendous amount of propellant to make up that kind of error. So that's one of the challenges why orbital dynamics is important. You've got to know when you're going to launch, where you're headed. A lot of people care where the sun is when you get into orbit. If you have got solar rays, then you need power right away on a satellite. So orbital dynamics, another great thing to study in school, because if you don't know where you're going to go and how to get there, you won't get there.
Yeah, you've been talking a lot about all the things that go into, designing and building a rocket that can do all the things that we've been doing, flying to orbit, taking payloads to orbit, taking humans to orbit. We've got a lot of history and a lot of things that we've learned. We didn't do this by ourselves. We worked very closely with NASA, and we've learned so much from them. We wouldn't be here today without the support of NASA and the knowledge that they have. Can you talk a little bit about things like the particular things that NASA has brought to the team?
Yeah, that NASA partnership goes way back. I joined SpaceX 2006, right when we were competing for what was called the COTS Space Act Agreement, the Commercial Orbital Transportation Service. Where NASA said, hey, we can't pay companies to develop systems from scratch, but we can give you essentially some seed money. So they had a competition. SpaceX was one of the winners. Elon put a lot of his money in. But working with NASA on the early Falcon 9 and the Dragon, we learned things like, what are some of the best practices? A lot of our engineers would pull off of the NASA Tech Library. How do you do hold-down systems or quick disconnect systems? What's worked in the past? So we essentially got to leverage that, all those lessons learned from decades by NASA. And then we learned things like, okay, we're going to send cargo to the space station. What does it mean to physically touch the space station? What are the requirements? Then how do you verify them to NASA? It's like somebody wants to bring a big truck into your garage and you know that your garage door is only so high. You're not just going to let them drive in. You're going to go measure that before it happens. So we went from that. We took astronauts to the space station. Each step of the way, NASA's been helping us understand what it means to get into space. What are some of those requirements that we've leveraged to do human spaceflight that you see here today?
Yeah, it is super exciting. Again, we've been learning a lot from NASA throughout the years. Kate has a very special guest interview. Kate, I'll throw it to you.
Thanks, Andy. Joining us now from Cape Canaveral is none other than Charlie Bolden, former NASA astronaut and administrator. Welcome.
Kate, it's great to be with you, and I was enjoying listening to the story and I think you all are being somewhat modest. We learned quite a bit from SpaceX as we began to partner also.
Thank you so much for that. Now, Charlie, like I mentioned, you were a NASA astronaut that then became the NASA administrator, and that happened at a pivotal time both in the history of NASA and commercial space. Were either one of those roles something that you dreamed of doing as a kid?
No, as a matter of fact, I tell kids all the time, I never dreamed of being an astronaut because I grew up in the segregated South, and that was just not, it was not something that was going to happen. Also, I had no desire to fly airplanes. I thought flying was inherently dangerous. But at the age of 12 in 7th grade, I fell in love with a place called the United States Naval Academy, watching a program on television called Minneapolis. And I struggled to get there. And when I finally got there, that led to my going into the Marine Corps, which led to my going to flight school, which led to my going to test pilot school, which led to my meeting the late great Dr. Ron McNair, who was the first group of space shuttle astronauts selected. And he's the guy that embarrassed me into applying for the space program. So I kind of fell into it. I don't recommend that kids follow my example.
Well, it sounds like you've had quite the journey throughout your career. And speaking of journeys, we talked a little bit earlier about the history of Pad 39A, which we see over your shoulder there in the distance. How does space travel look different from the days when you were an astronaut compared to the last 10 years or so?
You know, Kate, I think it's dramatically different. I mean, the techniques, the orbital mechanics, everything, all the laws and everything are the same. But it's the face of space flight today that is dramatically different. I'm so excited to be here this evening for this launch because you know, I was telling somebody earlier today, just the thought of having an all commercial crew, a crew of non-professional astronauts lift off from the same launch pad where Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin left before they stepped on the moon is just flabbergasting. It's sort of it's the complete cycle of a tale to get us from where it was nothing but government to where now we can actually have an all civilian, all commercial flight where NASA's really not involved at all, other than being the host here at the Kennedy Space Center.
And we're so thankful that you guys are able to host us. Now, if SpaceX were hosting you on today's mission, imagine if you were part of the Inspiration4 crew, what 2 or 3 personal items would you want to take with you?
You know, I love listening to each of the crew members talk about what they took. And on each of my flights, my very first flight, as a matter of fact, since I didn't know whether there would be any more, I took a ring that had belonged to my mother. I actually wore a pearl cross that she had worn since she was a child because it meant a lot to her. And I took very personal items also. If I were to go today, I now have a 12-week-old grandson, so I would have to take something that belongs to him, young Walker Elias. And I have 3, I'm blessed with 3 beautiful granddaughters. So my guess would be that at least 4 of those items would be from the 4 grandkids today.
You mentioned your grandkids. How do you imagine that the future of spaceflight might look whenever they are adults and possibly growing up to become astronauts themselves?
Oh, you know, Kate, I am firmly convinced that by the time Walker, who's the baby now, the 12-week-old, by the time he gets ready to go to space, we're going to be talking about, I mean, going to the moon will be, routine is not a word I like to use, so let's not do that, but it will be a place where we go with some frequency, and we'll be venturing off to Mars also. So I think there's a very good chance that probably Walker and maybe my baby granddaughter, Talia, will have an opportunity to be among the first people to actually set foot on Mars. So I'm very hopeful that they will end up doing that. And if they decide that they don't want to go to space, they don't want to fly, we're big proponents of, you know, Sion is actually really pushing the arts. I really agree with what she says. Arts and design are key aspects of what's required for us to even get people to space. And they are 2 areas that we should not overlook as we talk about STEM education. But the arts and design are what gives us, as an example, the wonderful spacesuits that the crew is wearing today. Some designer actually sat down and thought about that. You know, that's not aerodynamic. That's actually a little arts and design there. So I think the world is the oyster for my grandchildren, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You add the A into STEM and you get STEAM, right? Now, years ago at
Exactly right.
years ago at a joint SpaceX NASA launch, you gave observers some really great advice, and that was to put their phones down and watch the launch with their own eyes, just really enjoy the experience. Now, with our Inspiration4 crew sitting in their seats, what advice would you give to those civilian astronauts as they are preparing to go to space for the first time?
You know, believe it or not, I sent Jared a text a few days ago, and then I had an opportunity to say hello to them before they walked out the day. And my advice to them was relax, enjoy it, suck it up.
All right, John, you ready to make some new history?
To look at the incredible beauty of our planet from a perspective that not very many humans will have had.
Yeah.
You know, we've flown 500 and some odd
That was the tuxedo jacket I was wearing for Biden's inauguration, which is that's my Twitter picture that I had
600 kilometers, and that was a view that only people who were
yeah, maybe I'll rock that at the launch.
We've not had
But
any views like
yeah,
that
once
since
the
because
sun
we're
sets,
just
I'll
not
maybe
going that
get
high.
away with
They are going to
tuxedo
be in a
jacket.
unique position, looking at this planet from almost.
I even brought my little
and it's
red, white, and blue bow tie, but you know,
looking, that's awesome, but it's amazing how much just the additional 100 or so kilometers adds to your perspective. You don't see the whole planet. You're going to see a lot more of it than people see from the International Space Station.
I have two cameras with me, and I don't know how to use cameras very well. So, if you want to help me play with any of the settings or do a long exposure on like one of the
one of the primary functions of this mission is to inspire others. So you hit the nail on the head there for sure. Charlie Bolden, former NASA administrator and NASA astronaut, thank you so much for joining us today. Back over to Jesse as we continue to tick down to T0.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Charlie Bolden. That was an incredible interview, and great to hear from him, partners at NASA. It's just so great. You know, teamwork really makes the dream work. So if you're just now joining us, you picked a great time as we are approximately T-minus 56 minutes and counting until launch. Welcome to the coverage for the mission known as Inspiration4, the first all-civilian mission to space. Liftoff time is still holding for 8:02 p.m. Eastern time, and we're tracking no issues with Falcon 9 or Dragon. The range is green, the weather is cooperating. Over the last 3 hours, Jared Isaacman, Dr. Cyan Proctor, Haley Arsenault, and Chris Sombrowski donned their SpaceX spacesuits in our brand new SpaceX suit-up room, and were then transported to the pad where our crew entered the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft, which you've been seeing live on your screen the past few hours.
Yeah, but before we go any further, we have to get reacquainted with our crew. Let's take a moment and learn a little bit more about Jared. He is a 38-year-old Inspiration4 commander. He is the founder and chief executive officer of Ship4 Payments, a father and husband, and has set multiple world records as a pilot. When he was younger, Jared flew in over 100 air shows and dedicated every performance flight to positive, and today is no different. This mission is named Inspiration4 recognition of the 4-person crew's mission to inspire support for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Jared has donated $100 million himself and is hoping to raise another $100 million to support the nonprofit organization. This $200 million goal for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital would not be possible without Jared's dedication to a greater cause. Here's more about the New Jersey native and self-described aviation and aerospace fan.
I grew up in New Jersey, and when I was a kid, I wanted to grow up and be a doctor. My older brother's a doctor. I watched like the show ER as a kid. I thought that's pretty cool. I think, you know, saving lives is a pretty important thing. But, you know, life took me in a different direction. my interest in like aviation and aerospace goes back like since I was a kid. I mean, the first like computer I built, I was playing like Falcon 2.0, and then upgraded to play Falcon 3.0. I went to like Aviation Challenge, which is part of Space Camp as a kid. I was a observer of SpaceX from like the outside looking in, like a lot of people, and then my opportunity to kind of see what the inside was like began in October of 2020 when the idea of Inspiration4 started to come about. A big part of what we're trying to achieve with Inspiration4 is to send, an inspiring message really to the world about what is certainly possible up there in space, but also what we can accomplish here on Earth as well, which is why, this massive fundraising effort for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is such a big part of our mission. To me, having some balance where you're trying to tackle a problem of today so you can earn the right to keep making progress tomorrow is just a philosophy I've tried to live by for some time. The advice I would give my younger self, you can aim high, you can dream big, and even things that people would say is next to impossible, you can accomplish it. I totally believe like we all have that fundamental obligation to leave the world a better place than we found it. I'm Jared Isaacman, and I'm the commander of Inspiration4.
For this first all-civilian mission to orbit, Jared wanted his crewmates to represent the best of humanity, pillars he's identified as leadership, hope, generosity, and prosperity. As commander of the mission, Jared holds the seat of leadership. For the seat of hope, Jared went to St. Jude and was introduced to Haley Arsenault.
Haley is from Memphis, Tennessee, and serves as the medical officer of the Inspiration4 mission, overseeing medical care and experiments. When she was 10, she was diagnosed with bone cancer. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital helps her with groundbreaking treatment, including chemotherapy and limb-sparing surgery that resulted in replacing her femur bone with a prosthetic. Now she is currently a physician's assistant at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, the same place that saved her life so many years ago. At 29 years old, she represents a couple of firsts for this mission that's already the first civilian mission to go into space. Haley will be the youngest American to go into space and the first person to go into space with a prosthetic body part. Here is more on Haley, who occupies the seat of hope on the Inspiration4 mission.
I'm so excited to be going to space, and I'm just a regular person. I am so lucky that I got a phone call asking if I wanted to go to space. I'm from Louisiana. I was a super active, super outgoing kid, involved in everything, and I actually had just gotten my black belt in Taekwondo a couple days before I was diagnosed with cancer. I definitely am excited to represent those that aren't physically perfect. I want to bring this experience back and share with everyone I encounter, and just what this represents for the new age in space travel and who can be an astronaut. I've thought a lot about launch day. I've even had some dreams about launch day, and I still don't know what will be going through my mind. I know I'm going to be incredibly excited. And of course, I have the window seat. Looking out the window and seeing Earth from space is going to be so incredible. Can't even put into words. What I'm absolutely most excited about is we're going to call this Incubations from Space. And I'll get to video call these kids that I've gotten to treat, and these kids going through cancer treatment, and getting to show them what life after cancer can look like. It's been incredible for me to watch how much this mission has already touched the kids at St. Jude and how much hope it's given them. I love this one little girl I talked to recently. She said, I can't wait to be an astronaut. Like, there was no if and there. She just couldn't wait for it to happen. I think that's what hope is. I'm Haley Arsenault, Medical Officer of Inspiration4.
As part of the effort to raise money for St. Jude, Jared decided to give away one seat to a person at random who donated to St. Jude's cause. That seat, the seat of generosity, went to Christopher Sombrosky. Christopher Sombrosky of Seattle, Washington is the mission specialist of today's flight, helping to manage payload, science experiments, and communications to mission control. He is a 42-year-old mechanical and diagnostics lead at Lockheed Martin and a United States Air Force veteran. As an amateur astronomer, he grew up with a natural curiosity about outer space and even worked as a U.S. space camp counselor. For generosity after contributing to a special fundraising campaign for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Let's meet Chris, the Inspiration 4.
Yeah, exactly. Get my own way to space, you know? Maybe.
Let's meet Chris, the Inspiration 4 mission specialist.
When I found out I was going to space, I was dumbfounded. I think I was just struck dumb for days. The seed was planted for me to fall in love with space when I was little and started launching little rockets in my front yard with my dad, the first of which is still probably stuck in a Florida pine tree somewhere. But when I first saw a space shuttle launch in person from the causeway, 6 to 8 miles away, you could still feel that rumble pounding through your chest. That kind of just shifted my foundation a little bit, and I knew from there on out I had to be somehow a part of space, whether it was helping support a mission or lobbying for folks to be able to go into space. That's where I wanted to be. Of course, I'm going to be looking down at my home in Western Washington. I'm also looking to see what I don't see, and that's going to be lines on a map. Those walls that seem to separate us logically, politically, or even geographically or physically, those don't exist when you get far enough out. And I'm really hoping to bring back that sense of what it means to only have that one small line that matters to all of us, and that atmosphere that keeps us separated from the vacuum of space. As we get to launch day, I am going to have the biggest smile going ear to ear. It's going to be, I'm going to be shaking with excitement. No fears or jitters at all about what's going to happen, but man, that's going to be a heck of a show. I'm Chris Dombrowski, Mission Specialist of Inspiration4.
Jared reserved the fourth seat for someone who exemplified the entrepreneurial spirit. This fourth seat, representing prosperity, was awarded to Dr. Cyan Proctor. She is from Tempe, Arizona, and serves as the pilot for today's mission. She's 51 years old, is an entrepreneur, an educator, poet, artist, and has a voice in the space exploration community. She's about encouraging others to use their unique space to inspire those within their reach and beyond as part of her Space to Inspire motto. Dr. Cyan was awarded the Seat of Prosperity after being selected as the top entrant of an independently judged online business competition conducted by the Ship4Shop e-commerce platform. Here's more about Dr. Proctor and her love of exploring planet Earth.
The day of launch, I'm going to be thinking about how my entire life has led up to this moment. I was born on the island of Guam, and the reason why I was born there is that my dad worked for the NASA tracking station. And so I feel like space has always been a part of me. When I got that call, that Zoom, and Jared was on there, and he said that, they picked me for the prosperity seat, that I was going to go to space with him and be part of the Inspiration4. It really was like getting the golden ticket for Willy Wonka. Everything in my life finally came into focus, and I realized that it was all about this moment in time. I won the prosperity seat for Inspiration4, and I did that not as a geoscientist or an explorer or an analog astronaut, which are all on my resume. I actually won this as a poet and an artist. We are striving for that Star Trek generation, that idea of a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space, or a Jedi space. I'm going to be the first Black female pilot spacecraft ever. And to me, that just blows me away. And I want to encourage the next generation to dream that this is possible. And a Jedi space, that's what that's about. I'm Dr. Cyan Proctor, and I'm the mission pilot for Inspiration4.
Coming up on T-minus 45 minutes, we're waiting for the launch director to give instructions to the team.
Ready for crew SSR, propellant load, and launch. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD and then approve aboarding the countdown. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operator shall call hold on the countdown end. Launch control will abort the launch off sequence immediately and proceed into the launch abort sequence. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and rely on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Operators advise the launch director whether structural breakup or fires imminent or occurring or Dragon manual escape flight rules. In the event of a fire alarm, key operators will remain at their posts while the alarm is evaluated. In the event that personnel safety is threatened, evacuate to the south-facing emergency exit, which leads directly outside. Launch control may proceed with arming the crew for movement.
There you heard the instructions and a great view from the camera on
whatever
the
you think.
service structure looking down the crew arm. SpaceX team has been pulled with 7 operators on Falcon 9 and firing room 4 at Kennedy Space Center. Have indicated they are go for propellant load of the Falcon 9 and launch. The crew is given a go. The Dragon team's given a go. We're moving into the next of the major steps, retracting the crew access arm. This will take a couple of minutes. We're going to follow that by arming the launch escape system, and in T-minus 35 minutes, we get propellant load of the
you got the arm on here. Yeah, you can see the arm coming out. It's just mirrored on here.
Oh, yeah. Here, outline. Watching arm moving away as we get deeper into the countdown. Weather continues to be good for Falcon 9 launch. Range is ready to support. All systems remain green and go.
How do you adjust the focus? Focus. Just
so what? That one's not going to the screen anymore. Oh.
Oh, it's gonna move. Damn it. I got it. There's a manual focus.
Continuing to move away. Once it's in position, we ought to hear the instructions to the crew to close all active visors and then arm the escape system on the Dragon spacecraft.
The countdown clock is continuing to tick, and we are now at T-minus. Standing by the crew arm is the crew access arm has retracted, and that is one of the last major visual milestones that will see preparation for liftoff. And slowly moving back here.
Yeah, I don't know. This guy may have left if he wants.
And shortly thereafter, once the crew arm has been retracted, we should hear the call out and the launch escape system is armed. And from there, we'll hear that Falcon 9 prop load has started.
We saw our Inspiration4 crew members suit up about 3 hours ago in our brand new suit up room located in the Falcon Support Building.
Coming up SpaceX, we're going for section 7 of 4.100. We're closing visors and arming LES. Okay, the next major step, you see the view of the crew inside the Inspiration4 capsule, closing their visors. Make sure they're locked and sealed. The next step will be arming the launch escape system. That's where the Super Draco thrusters are enabled. So if anything happens from here through the countdown or flight, Dragon has the ability to leave Falcon 9 and carry the crew into a safe recovery out in the ocean. We're waiting now for the call out. The launch escape system is armed.
Yeah, John, you mentioned the launch escape system, and
launch escape system is verified armed.
I'm just gonna try it.
And there's that call out, the launch.
We're closing out 4.100.
Copy that, Dragon.
There's that call out. The launch escape system is now armed. And again, this is the first of its kind escape system to provide this escape capability all the way to orbit.
I like it. How's it think? Right.
You can hear the team here is getting really excited as we march towards T0.
launch escape system. Let's talk a little bit more about that. It utilizes the Super Draco engines that are installed into the Dragon There are 8 Super Draco engines on the Dragon capsule, and they're aptly named Super Dracos. They differ from the regular Dracos just a little bit. The Draco engines that are on the Dragon that help in in-orbit maneuvers, those produce about 90 pounds of force in the vacuum space. A single Super Draco engine produces 15,000 pounds of force. And so altogether, it produces over 120,000 pounds of force, and that is what is needed in case of an emergency to accelerate the Dragon capsule and crew away from any type of emergency.
Exactly. And like you said, those Super Dracos are just super powered Draco engines. And the only time they're ever utilized is in that launch abort procedure. So we are not expecting to use them today, but we do take safety very seriously, and we take every measure possible to ensure that the crew has options and has an escape in the worst of scenarios. And like Jesse mentioned before, it's the first of its kind and provides an escape capability for the crew all the way to orbit.
Yes, so that launch escape system is currently armed. Once in orbit, we actually disarm that, and we'll be relying only on the Draco engines from there on out.
Yeah. Now, next up, we will be having top load begin. And this is basically when when Falcon comes alive. We begin to load liquid oxygen and rocket grade kerosene, also known as RP1, into both the first and second stages. Dragon is already fully loaded. The fuels for Dragon, the Hypergulls, get fully loaded down the street from Pad 39A a week or two in advance to launch. So it's already locked and loaded. Up next is the prop load for Falcon.
One thing while we've got a moment, we were talking about Super Dracos and contingency aborts. You will hear call-outs probably during the ascent, stage 1A, stage 2A, stage 1B.
Will be venting for propellant load.
That just means various points in time, if an escape was necessary, Dragon flight computer is programmed to do different things. How long engines will burn, how long it'll wait to coast to apogee, what it'll do to come back down when the parachutes are deployed. So when you hear those, it's usually the crew giving the call out, the ground doing it, indicate moving farther and farther away from the launch pad. So if a contingency arose, different sequences would be performed in the Dragon flight computer. Right now, we're just 90 seconds away from the start of propellant loading. T-minus 36 minutes, 26 seconds. Everything continues to look good for Crew Dragon's 4th launch with people. Today, the first all-civil mission to lower Earth orbit.
Exhibits.
Now we should hear a call out right at T-minus 35 minutes. When propellant load begins.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome here to the Saturday 5 building in our special place to be watching this special launch today. This is the first with, for people that are not really the astronauts and have been trained to be astronauts. So just a couple things, we make sure which pad should you definitely be looking towards is the one that's straight out ahead of us with the lightning arrestor, one single lightning arrestor. That is where that rocket is going to be taking off today. Make sure you look at we're about 4.2 miles away from that launch pad. Pad E, which is sort of closer to us, and it's about 2.5. You can barely hear me. Okay, I got that. So this guys need to turn me up. That's how they knew when I said exhibits to turn things down so they can actually hear me out here. Can everybody hear me out there? Someone? No? Okay, I gotta tell my exhibits guy they need to turn me up. They should. That's how the volume like that. Ask him to turn me up.
The building here at SpaceX headquarters is certainly growing.
Propellant load has started.
Especially with that call right there.
We're inside T-minus 35 minutes. We are right on time. Propellant load start call out has begun. The fill and drain valves for the first and second stage fuel tanks and the first stage liquid oxygen tank now coming open. Ground system pumps beginning to push the propellant in. As we said, that'll continue all the way down to T-minus 2 minutes. We'll hear call-outs and bring status as we go through the countdown. But currently, everything good at pad 39A for the launch of the Inspiration4 crew.
Okay, I just got a couple of announcements saying that if there's anybody with the, can't hear me yet? No, can't, okay. He hasn't got a hold of them just yet, okay. I'm gonna try them. Let me
I don't
know.
know where she's at. We can hear her, but I guess nobody down there.
Was that? Yeah. Wouldn't be in the bed without some device.
Completed numerous simulations, including a 30-hour and 12-hour end-to-end simulation in our Dragon trainer. They trained not only at SpaceX, but they also did a few other trainings, centrifuge training. They flew some fighter jets together, did some aerobatics in these jets, some flips, and experienced some real G before this mission today.
Yeah, they even got to pilot the jets themselves, which was super cool to see.
They also completed a zero-G flight, which you can see them there, almost heroes. They even climbed Mount Rainier in Washington, which looks like a very difficult hike.
Yes, I think during the docuseries, it was almost a whiteout condition, but they kept trekking along. It was 4,000.
Can you hear me now? Exhibits. Can everybody hear me now? All right, that's fine. Okay. Okay, I wanted to mention that those who maybe have that filled the heat ticket, anybody want to pick up the food inside. Special area where the food is being put out for you. And once again, the bag that you need to make sure you're looking for is the one straight across. It's lit up with 2 lights, it looks like, on its side. With the one single lightning arrestor, you see the big water tower on its side. That is pad 39A. So that is where we are definitely launching from today. One day, the big Space Launch System rocket will launch over here on pad B with the big 3 lightning arrestors right there blinking at us. That will be the rocket to see, hear, and feel. It is more powerful than the Saturn V rocket we have on display one day. So whenever we do the test flight, you'll definitely want to come back to see that. So we're going to be doing a little special announcement here just before the launch, just to let everybody know about a little bit of the hazards itself. We're going to listen to the commentary for a little bit longer. And hopefully at 8:02, we will actually have the rocket launch takeoff. No guarantees till you know they left off the ground. Okay, so if everything's running right, we'll see this rocket launch. We have 4 tests today. So we have 3 more we have to go through. So let's all cross our fingers on that. Thank you. I'll be back here shortly with you.
Hanging out up there, but when the
Body strength I need next couple of months and build up some more muscles.
Yeah.
Today was my favorite day of training because today was the medical training day.
Learn some more about some of the medical experiments we're going to be working with and helping to advance what we know about humans in spaceflight. We've all contributed all sorts of fluids now to the greater scientific cause.
But the best part is we all got in our spacesuits together.
We got to wear spacesuits, strap into the simulator, and feel like we were actually going to space.
Hello again, Chris here, and it's August 2nd, 2021, 44 days from our launch in September. Everything keeps going to plan, and it's been an incredible week last week, working on SpaceX teams, down at Kennedy Space Center, and then back here in Hawthorne this week for some sims.
This spacesuit that I got fitted for about 7 months ago, I actually get to see and try on and do a bunch of maneuvers in to make sure that it's comfortable and that I can move. And I am just so excited for this because, I mean, this is the spacesuit I'm going to wear leaving the planet.
I'm just so honored and thankful and grateful to be a part of this historic mission
and a part of the SpaceX team.
Y'all are working so hard to get to Mars and beyond. We want to provide great data, and we're really excited to be part of this.
All right, well, thanks everybody for a fantastic time here in Hawthorne and also down at Kennedy. We've been doing training down there as well. So really appreciate everything you guys have been doing.
This is my final call here from SpaceX. So we're signing off.
Cool.
So incredible to get an inside look to their training. Only 553 humans have been to orbit, and most of those traveled as part of government or country-specific missions. As a result, the research conducted on those missions, particularly as it relates to humans in space, is often only accessible by the country or government that conducted the research. Think about the possibilities if the data from all those missions could be made available to the broader science community for research. Inspiration4 is a step in that direction.
The crew of Inspiration4 will conduct research in orbit that has the potential to improve human health here on Earth and for future space explorers. One of the cool things about this mission is that all biomedical data collected during the mission, things like heart rhythm and rate, blood oxygen saturation, among other things, will be accessible for research.
And to that end, SpaceX and the Inspiration4, the Translational Research Institute for Space Health, to collect data and biological samples from the crew before, during, and after this historic spaceflight. Part of NASA's Human Research Program, TRISH is a virtual institute to find and fund disruptive science and medical technology in order to reduce health and performance risks in space explorers.
Yeah, we saw Kate with Diana earlier putting on some really colorful sunglasses. They're not really sunglasses, but it was an experiment about how do we understand motion sickness and sort of the ups and downs in space. That is something I'm super excited about because I get a lot of motion sickness here, so I'm hoping that it helps a lot of people.
To see firsthand some of the equipment that the crew has in their cargo hold. Like we've said before, this is a science mission in addition to it's a 3-day science mission basically. And one of the other things that Diana showed us was the ultrasound reader and how the intracranial fluid changes while you're in space. So lack of gravity essentially means that instead of the fluids, they equalize towards your head, which can affect vision. And they are planning to use that ultrasound reader, which they just plug right into an iPad to do readings live inside Crew Dragon of eyeballs while they're in space for 3 days.
That was so cool to see.
Yeah.
In addition to all the awesome science going up on today's mission, the Inspiration4 team is also using this mission to bring awareness and help fundraise for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The Children's Research Hospital opened in Memphis, Tennessee in 1962, and ever since has been committed to finding cures for kids with cancer and other life-threatening diseases, regardless of their socioeconomic status, race, belief. Not that high, with fewer than 1 in 5 children with cancer surviving. St. Jude has a bold mission to change that.
The Inspiration4 mission is part of an ambitious fundraising goal to give hope to all kids with cancer and other life-threatening diseases. The goal is to raise $200 million for St. Jude. Jared already committed $100 million. Jared already committed $100 million of his own money, and the team has raised about $30 million so far, but we still have a ways to go. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll notice that there's a donation button where you can make your own contribution. Any amount, big or small, makes a big difference, and it's super easy to do. So go ahead and click the donate button and give what you can to help save a child's life.
Beyond the good this mission will do for science and childhood cancer, this mission is also exciting because it's the debut of the new Dragon cupola. I think we have some footages here of the cupola. It is going to be the largest continuous window in space ever by a factor of 2 and has over 2,000 inches of air.
And there's a lot that went into the design for this. This is going to outer space, so it needs to be designed and tested for, all the loads that it will see while it's out in space. It's a great view to look out of, but it also needs to act as a fully functioning portion of the spacecraft.
Yeah, we were talking about reusability earlier, and this capsule is being used for the second time on this mission. It previously supported the Crew 1 mission in November of last year, but this cupola is brand new to this capsule, brand new to SpaceX. We're debuting it on this mission, and it is there's a view of it there in an anechoic chamber. And it's just incredible that we're basically going to have 360 views of space from the forward hatch there of the Crew Dragon capsule. And this is an animation showing how its position in Crew Dragon is a little different. So Crew Dragon used to dock autonomously